All right, here we go, guys. Good to see you today, and we're going to finish up our Revolutionary War unit this week. We're going to do two lessons today and tomorrow. Today's lesson is about Yorktown, the surrender at Yorktown, and tomorrow is just a quick lesson on some cool facts about the Revolutionary War. Wednesday, we'll do a study guide slides together. Thursday, you're going to take a test on the Revolutionary War. I think you'll think it's pretty easy. We've gone over it a lot, so I think you'll know every single question without any problem. Then Friday, I'll probably give you a day off and just let you finish up a Liberty Kids video. So let's work hard these first 4 days, though. Today, we're going to read a text called Surrender at Yorktown. You remember, because we've already gone over this, that Yorktown was the last battle of the Revolutionary War. And so we know that General Cornwallis surrendered there. And so we're going to read about this today. So here we go. One of the reasons the United States won the American Revolution is that some important foreigners fought for its cause. Two important individuals, these are hard names to say, were the Marquis de Lafayette and Friedrich von Steuben. Lafayette was a rich teenager from France who thought the American cause was such a great one that he came across the Atlantic Ocean and joined the Continental Army as an officer. Lafayette fought bravely in battles, such as the Battle of Brandywine, where he survived being shot by a musket in the leg, and a musket's just a rifle. In the middle of the war, Lafayette went back to France and helped urge his government to increase its support for the Americans. Lafayette was considered such a hero that there are streets, counties, and towns named for him all over the United States, including Fayetteville and Lafayette, Tennessee. Have you ever been there? Meanwhile, the Continental Army's winter at Valley Forge had at least one bright spot. Friedrich von Steuben, a professional soldier from Prussia, joined Washington's army at Valley Forge and helped train American soldiers in how to drill, march, and fight. Von Steuben did this even though he hardly spoke a word of English. Almost everything he said had to be translated. Von Steuben was harsh, but the American soldiers knew he was teaching them to be better fighters. His training would make a big difference as the war went on, which is why there are statues of him today in Washington, D.C. and Valley Forge. What about the Battle of Kings Mountain? In 1778, the British started a new campaign referred to as the Southern Strategy. The idea was to invade Georgia and move north from there. The British believed that more Southerners than New Englanders were loyal to them, which would help the invasion succeed. From the British point of view, the Southern Strategy got off to a great start with the takeover of Savannah, Georgia in 1778 and Charleston in 1780. By the summer of that year, British forces moved north through South Carolina in 3 parts. The furthest west of these parts was led by Major Patrick Ferguson. It consisted entirely of Tories recruited from elsewhere in the South. So he had a whole army of Americans who were for the king. In October 1780, Ferguson's Tory army fought an army of the Patriots at a hill in South Carolina called Kings Mountain. The Patriot Army, which included several hundred over mountain men from Tennessee, crushed the Tory army and killed Ferguson. The Battle of Kings Mountain gave the Americans a big morale boost. It also made sure that no British force would ever penetrate that far into the inland South again. This is a really neat story. Let me tell you just a little bit more about Kings Mountain. You've probably been to Sevierville. You have been to Sevier County. If you've been to Dollywood, Sevier County is named after John Sevier. And John Sevier and quite a few other men broke the proclamation of 1763 and came across the mountains and started the very first settlement in Tennessee called the Watauga settlement. And then some more settlements came into Tennessee, began growing in Tennessee. Well, the king sent orders through Patrick Ferguson to tell John Sevier and all those Tennessee people they better get back across the mountain because that's supposed to be Indian land. And if they didn't come back across the mountain, he was sending Patrick Ferguson to come get them, and they better watch out. Well, you know how tough Tennessee people are. They're like, you know what? Send your Patrick Ferguson. We don't care. We'll come get him. As a matter of fact, we'll meet you halfway. And sure enough, they did. As Patrick Ferguson and his Tory army came across the mountains to come and try to get them out of Tennessee, they went down and met him in the mountains and just destroyed his army, killed him there. He's still buried. Patrick Ferguson is on top of Kings Mountain. You could see his grave if you went there today. It's in South Carolina. Well, let's read about Yorktown. Years came and went, and the Americans were still fighting. By 1781, Washington's army had been joined by a 5,000-man French army led by Jean-Baptiste de Rochambeau. Meanwhile, the main British army led by General Charles Cornwallis was camped at Yorktown, a small town on Chesapeake Bay in Virginia. Washington decided to march the French and American armies all the way from Rhode Island to Yorktown, a distance of 680 miles by road. You have to run the mile in gym. That's pretty hard, isn't it? How would you like to walk 680 miles? That's what George Washington's army did to get down to Yorktown. Washington's decision turned out to be a brilliant one. While his forces were marching to Yorktown, the French Navy defeated the Royal Navy at an engagement called the Battle of the Chesapeake. This kept the Royal Navy from entering the Chesapeake Bay and defending Cornwallis's army. When the combined American and French army got to Yorktown, Cornwallis's troops were surrounded by an enemy army on one side and enemy ships on the other. And after being fired upon by cannons and guns for about a week, Cornwallis and his 7,000-man army surrendered. When the news of what happened at Yorktown reached Great Britain, Parliament decided it's time to end the war. A year later, the peace treaty was signed at Paris. Under the terms of the Treaty of Paris, the British recognized the independence of its former colonies, now the United States of America. So we whipped them at Yorktown, and they surrendered and said, fine, you can be your own country. Go ahead and be the United States of America. That was the battle that won the war for us, an interesting battle. Now, you have 10 questions about this text. I would do them right now since the text is fresh on your mind. If you would like to go back and look at the text or listen to me read it again, you can keep that open in one tab at the top and your questions open in another tab at the top. And that way you can go back and forth between the tabs and answer the questions. Also, after the slides on this slide set, the very end, I put a little Liberty's Kid video about Marquis de Lafayette, just in case you'd like to hear more about his story. Okay? So go back and do your questions now on this and watch that video afterwards. Those videos are optional. I like them, but you may not have time to watch them. But if you want to, I think you'd really enjoy learning some more about Marquis de Lafayette. We'll see you tomorrow.